Hey friends, over 60% of you are listening to me right now on an Apple product. iPhone, iPad, iTunes. I need your help. The truth is, Apple will make this podcast more discoverable to new listeners the more reviews it has. So I'm here asking you to take a moment and leave a review. If you've gained any value from this podcast, the greatest thing you can do for it, besides spreading the word and telling friends, is leaving a review. It's real simple. If you're on your phone, head over to my podcast page within the Apple Podcast app and leave a review. Or if you're on a computer, you can head over to my podcast page within the iTunes app. That's it. That's all I ask. And if you have other podcasts that you love, do them a favor and do the same for them. It'll make their day. Now let's get this podcast started already.
I've been running late, super late all day today, so I've been very behind. This is the first thing I'm on time for.
Well, I'm glad to hear it. That's good. Hopefully nothing serious is putting you behind.
No. So just a very quick backstory. If you've ever heard these podcasts, you know we just pick them up right in the middle of the conversation. But I was out grocery shopping for work. I store like little snacks throughout the day,
Sure.
and I went to one Walmart and they didn't have a damn thing that I needed. And this was like the one that's like on my way home, because there's actually two that are technically on the way home. The first one is kind of weird because if you don't like get past it by a certain time, there's a bunch of traffic that backs up and then you're just stuck in traffic, right? And then so the next one is technically on the way home, although it's about maybe 2 miles off the beaten path. But this store is just like, it looks like we're stuck in the 90s in this one. It looks like every 1990s Walmart you ever went into as a kid. Where they didn't have anything. It was a complete mess. And then so finally I go to a second one that is about maybe 5 miles out of the way. And they didn't have exactly what I wanted, but they had stuff that I could actually have. So I was like, all right, you know what? Screw it. We're gonna go with this. I'm a creature of habit, and we can get into this as we go through. But it's like, I tend to do a lot of the same things, very repetitive until it stops working, or in the food's case, until I get sick of it. Because
Sure.
Number one, it's very predictable, so you know how many calories are going in, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
And so, I have probably 3 or 4 different types of bags of chips that I keep on me that kind of cure that need for food that are only 100 calories per bag, and I limit myself to 1 bag a day for that. So they didn't have any of those brands that I actually normally have, but I did find other stuff that was comparable that has the same or actually less calories in the bag. So I was like, all right, you know what? This is a winner. I grabbed 3 bags of stuff that looked even remotely interesting, and I got the hell out of there. I got to the gym about an hour and 20 minutes late. And so I got home, took out the dogs, and here I am, and we're on a podcast. How about that? How was your day? Because we talk about this podcast is a conversation with you, and I've just spent the last 3 minutes talking about my day. So let's get on to the more important thing. How was your day?
Dude, my day was beautiful, man. Over the weekend, I attended this event in Columbus called the Summit of Greatness, hosted by this guy named Lewis Howes. He does a lot of personal development stuff. And
yes.
In this, the event, they host a lot of really inspiring people that come in and speak from all over the place. And I mean, I've been riding cloud 9 ever since I left on Sunday rather. But yeah, man, what a newfound appreciation, I guess you could say, for life. And just so the last couple of days have just been, I think everybody at my work's a little annoyed with me because I'm just floating along.
You're Johnny Positive.
Yeah,
and they want to be Johnny Negative.
Yeah, I actually work with all females, so they're all. Yeah, so they all kind of band together, and I'm usually kind of riding solo as it is, but then there I am, Mr. Optimistic, and
people hate that though, don't they? A lot of times, I think, unless you get in this kind of group that we're all in on the weight loss community on Instagram, I feel like a lot of people that are not immersed in that, they, I know generally very negative people, that are in my life, whether that's colleagues or what have you, but I'm just like, And what the hell you got to be so negative about? Like, you woke up, and now look, and this is coming from a guy who went through like a month of a creative slump, and I was absolutely depressed, and I'm coming out of that. I'm about 95% out of it now, but like, in the grand scheme of things, it came to one thing. It's like, what in the hell do I need to be depressed about? I woke up today. I'm breathing air. I'm 100 pounds lighter than I was. I'm not in jail. I'm not dead. I'm not in a hospital bed. Like, what in the world do I have to be so upset about? Yeah, we go to our jobs. Are they perfect? No. Do we wish we were doing something else a lot of times? Yes. We're lying if we say we don't. But like, what do we have to be so upset about?
Oh, for sure. I think another reason everybody was kind of, done with me yesterday is because, after this weekend, like I said, I was just on cloud nine. And then everybody yesterday, what does everybody say Monday morning? Oh, it's Monday. And there I am like, man, thank God it's Monday. Let's freaking go.
Right. It's a new week, new opportunities.
Absolutely, man. And that's the beautiful thing about it. But yeah, like you said, there's two ways to look at it, the positive or the negative, and boy, does the negative suck. So, just, train yourself to be positive and look for those bright points and keep it rolling,
That's what I'm talking about. And before we get into your story, I'd love to know more about this weekend that you were a part of. I've heard the name Lewis Howes. I'm fairly certain he did a contest recently, and I think I entered it, and I think I've been getting emails from him, but that's about the extent of what I know about this guy.
Sure.
There are a lot of these guys that, they're like influencers, they're motivational people. They know a certain niche, or whether it's podcasting or YouTube, and you keep hearing their names over and over again because they're very good at what they do about getting increased visibility. So how do you get hooked up on this guy? And, tell me a little bit more about this weekend.
Yeah, for sure. So Lewis came at a very fine point in my life because and to kind of wrap my weight loss story into it.
Yes.
So at first, we'll kind of backtrack. So back in 2015 is when I first started I sat down and decided I was going to lose weight.
And what was that moment that got you there? It's one of my favorite questions to ask.
Yeah. So after high school, I graduated high school in 2011.
Okay.
So for the next 4 years, I could care less about my weight. I'm working a retail management job and just, slowly gaining weight, could care less. And then it's funny because one day, just out of the blue, this guy walks into my store where I'm working. And I mean, dude is just jacked as hell. And I'm like instantly envious of this dude. I mean, just muscles galore and just like, ripped as hell. And he comes through the line and one of my employees starts talking to him, and his name is Matt, the employee. And I was like, Matt, who is this guy? Who are you? Like, how do you know this guy? It's incredible. He's like, oh, that's Pat. Pat's my trainer. I work out with him, every Friday. And at that point, fitness, weight loss was not really on my radar whatsoever.
Right.
But something about him and their interaction just drew me. And I was like, Matt, how can I jump aboard and get along with it? And then just like that, just out of nowhere, spontaneously, I started working out with those two every Friday night for the first couple months, and then started, going to the gym on my own in between. And I had a friend of mine at the time who was helping me outside of working with my trainer at the time. So that was 2015. And then I was riding a real hot streak. So I was up around 400 pounds, excuse me.
Wow.
And so that's kind of where I was, but I'm also a taller guy. I kind of carry it pretty well. I'm 6'3". So, when I tell people like I'm 320 pounds now, people are like, whoa, what are you talking about? Like you're just a taller guy and just look a little, huskier. But So after 2015, like I said, I started working with my trainer. I mean, he's showing me the ropes, and to this day, he's still my trainer. I go work out with him twice a week if I can, and just an amazing guy. And so I'm doing really good. I'm down to 286 pounds around, what was it, 2016, I want to say.
Right.
So a little over a year and a half or so. And I remember I was working out at a Gold's Gym near my house at the time, and I was doing chest that day. Well, I remembered bench pressing first thing, right off the bat. And I felt this really weird pain in my heart, or my chest rather. I just kind of assumed it was my heart. And I had a hard time breathing, real short of breath, just real struggle. It was a real burden.
Yeah.
And so I stopped, I cut, obviously you listen to your body, and my body was definitely not having it that day. And for a good reason, because a couple of days later I went and got a CAT scan done. And so our hearts sit in this sac called the pericardium, right?
Right.
And so I had a cyst that was actually growing inside of the pericardium that was growing upwards towards my heart and was causing it to it was hitting my heart essentially when it would beat. So that was kind of giving me my shortness of breath.
Yeah.
So a week or two later, I go and do this crazy surgery where they cut through. So I don't know why they did it this way. And honestly, I didn't ask any questions, because when they were like, listen, man, we got to get this cyst out of your chest right now, or else, you could potentially die if this thing blows up in your chest. Well, I had no idea. They cut clean through my left pec and then went across over to the heart. They luckily didn't touch my right pec, I'm sorry, I said my left pec. So they cut through my right pec, excuse me. I think I said that incorrectly.
Okay.
And reached through my chest, went and took the cyst out, and, they didn't touch my left pec at all in front of my heart, which was, nice. So here I am, 286 pounds at the time. That's the lowest I got. And I just kept, after that, I jumped in the gym way too early.
Right.
When you have a pec that has been completely cut through, I don't think the doctor intended for me to go back into the gym like 2 weeks later and start trying to do chest again.
Probably not.
To his order, that was just my ego and people saying, oh, hey, you're losing all this weight. Why don't we go work out?
Sure.
I was still feeling good, but my ego was just riding high as well. And that was probably the worst thing for me at the time.
Yeah.
So that's around 2016. And then, I just started steadily gaining the weight back. Got out of my good habits, stopped meal prepping, stopped going to the gym regularly, stopped just showing up in general. And then with my pec injury that I, of course, didn't let heal properly, that was just, a little too much for me to handle at the time. And like I said, just kept gaining weight. And then last year, so 2017, October 1st, my mom passed away out of nowhere.
I'm sorry.
And and after that, I gained even more weight back. The grieving process it's very real. And even as positive as I tried to be, it was tough for sure. So it was, I think, around March of this year, around my birthday, where I just kind of sat and looked at myself in the mirror and was like, listen, man, like, we got to do something, or you're going to end up just like your mom in no time. Because I'm back up to around 380 pounds around that time. And I mean, my mental state was just not there. I'm still, at this time, just a pretty happy guy and pretty wholesome guy.
Yeah.
But boy, was everything out of whack there. So where Lewis House came in,
yeah,
through this elongated story.
No, it's fine.
Right after my mom passed, it was actually my girlfriend. She showed me the podcast for the first time. So he hosts this podcast called The School of Greatness, and he interviews these just astounding people. Every week he comes out with a new episode, and he just does these amazing interviews with these really inspiring people. A couple notable ones that were there over the weekend was Sean T. The big what does he do? Like hip hop abs and all the big cardio videos and stuff. So he was there. He spoke. I don't know if you've heard of Eric Thomas, or E.T., the hip hop preacher. He spoke there.
Okay.
There's this guy I really like. He's a former monk. His name is Jay Shetty, and he's really popular on the Facebook scene right now, but he was there too. And yeah, man, after hearing these guys on the podcast, I was just like, man, I've got to go hear these people speak in person. And I was fortunate enough to end up meeting them in person afterwards. And it's just so humbling to know that there's so many good people that are positive influences like that in the world. But so I found Lewis after my mom passed, And like I said, around, I don't know, February, March of this year, around my birthday, I just, made that hard look at myself and was like, listen, man, we've got to make a change because I am too young to die, and I'm not going out like this. So
Yeah.
I took some of the habits I learned from people on Lewis's podcast and really started to apply them. You listen to things and you go, oh yeah, I could do that too. And never really applied myself to anything, and just, listen to the words, didn't, do any of the work.
Right.
Sure.
Yeah. Yep.
And I just took a look at myself and I said, listen, man, I've got to do something. So I really got into, I reestablished old habits, a lot of them. One of them was getting up an extra 45 minutes early every morning and going on a walk, on a walk, something simple, doesn't have to be crazy, and listen to a podcast, an audiobook, something, expand your mind and go on a walk, wake up your mind, wake up your body, just get started on a good track. And I really took a look back at my nutrition again. The one thing I think is really interesting in our time right now, especially with Instagram being as popular as it is and YouTube and all that, is just how complex sometimes I think we make nutrition out to be.
Yes.
Because all the girls I work with at my office, a lot of them have joined like the keto bandwagon and all this. And I truth be told, to be transparent, I did it for about 2 weeks, just a couple weeks ago, just to see how my body would react to it.
Yeah.
And I found that it didn't really work. It didn't really sit well for me. So, but if it works, it works. If it's healthy for you and if you think it's sustainable, I'm all for it, as long as you're not crashing and burning and doing something, really idiotic.
Yeah, that's what I hear. I hear that it works very well for a lot of people. Then some people say, it's not for everybody.
Right.
So you kind of just got to try it and see what it does for you.
Right. Yeah, that's the big thing. And I knew I've gotten really good at listening to my body with injuries or what have you, and I just knew that my body wasn't going to run properly like that. Because you cut out basically all carbs to a certain extent. Like I was still eating, blueberries, strawberries, certain berries and things like that. And obviously fruits or other vegetables and stuff like that. But to a very large extent, you're very limited to your choices. And after about 2 weeks, I just knew it wasn't for me. But, like I said, if it's sustainable for you, if you feel good while you're doing it, then, do it. But yeah, again, I just think a lot of the times we make it so difficult on ourselves because whether it's macro counting or keto or, what have you, I think we tend to blow things a little out of proportion and try to do, all these crazy things weight loss. I overheard, I was listening to a podcast of yours this morning with that big guy 700.
Oh yeah.
And I was actually in my bedroom here doing sit-ups at the time, going through my morning routine. And
right.
I remember you guys talking about, people selling like weight loss pills, wraps and all this stuff. And it's silly to us, guys that have been through it now.
Yeah.
But to starting off, it's a very daunting task to look at it and go, holy crap, I've got 150 pounds, 200 pounds, whatever it is to lose. How am I going to make these radical changes in my life to try to accomplish this big task that I'm, obviously want in my life? But
right.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, and the biggest problem is we want it now. We're all guilty of it. I think I made this joke in one podcast. I'll make it again now. It's relevant, but it's like, when you order something on Amazon, you want that shit next day air, buddy. You want that thing the very next day. You don't want to wait 5 days. Amazon's like, hey, wait 5 days, buddy. We'll give you a credit for this other thing. No, I don't want the free credit. I don't want the free money. I want my package the next day. Damn it. And that's
right.
It's just, it's what a lot of us or most of us are programmed, especially when you're getting started. I mean, in my first month of this journey, I lost probably 20 some odd pounds. I'm like, well, God, if I can go 20 pounds a month, then man, I'll be there in no time. And that's just not how it works.
Unfortunately not.
I operate on the 4 pillars, and that's patience, consistency, hard work, and self-love. And if you've got those 4 things,
Yeah.
you're going to succeed. You're going to go really, really far. If you don't have those four things, if you have one or two or maybe even three of them, you're kind of screwed because you need all four. And it's so critical. I mention it all the time, but you need those four things. And if you don't have them, you're really going to, you're going to be, you're going to be kind of helpless in a sense. If you don't have these things, you need them. They're essential.
Oh, for sure. And, to their credit, all the companies that put these advertisements for weight loss pills or, fat burners, wraps that produce ads on Instagram or Facebook, they sure do make it very appealing because, you see these really skinny models that went from, lost all this weight using this product. And, how much of that is credible to be honest. And yeah, they make it very appealing nonetheless, but yeah, it's quite the interesting dynamic. And I like what you said about the four pillars, and yeah, that was something you said in that podcast I was listening to, and it really resonated with me because I know since my mom passed, the hardest thing for me was self-love. And
yes,
boy, oh boy, over the last, I don't know, 9-10 months now, that has been the biggest emphasis on my life is just self-love and just appreciating what we have here. I mean, there's so many things we take for granted every single day, and it's baffling to an extent because we go to these jobs, we hear people complain about these little minute things and blow things out of proportion, and we're over here just saying, God, I'm just happy to be alive.
Yeah.
And one thing my buddy told me to do, we were sitting down having dinner one night, and I was struggling with it at the time, and he was kind of helping me through a little bit of a rut I had. And he was just like, Ryan, look in the mirror every day and just tell yourself, I love you. And at the time, I'm just sitting there thinking, what? Well, that is so uncomfortable. Why would I do that? That sounds so uncomfortable. But, Gary, I did that for, I don't know, 2 weeks. And boy, did it really hit home. And another thing I did was I hired a life coach a couple weeks ago, or a couple months ago rather, and that was one of his biggest emphasis too, was clearing out the weeds in our my mind and getting that appreciation for yourself again, because you lose a bit of that once you stall in weight loss. Something happens,
Yeah.
You have an injury or something, who knows what it is, but yeah, you lose that love you had for yourself and that fire you had that made you want to start losing weight in the first place, because we all want the best intention for ourselves, and we want ourselves to get healthier, happier, stronger, all that. But once those road bumps happen, it's so easy to fall in that rut and just believe that you're this worthless character now, but you're not. And it took me a long while to figure that out, and it definitely didn't happen when I first started losing weight. I think after my surgery on my chest and after losing my mom especially is when I really just took a step back and went, holy shit, we're all so special in our own ways, and whatever it takes, man, that is, for me at least, the biggest pillar you're talking about. Because I mean, without that self-love, what reason do I have to lose the weight? Without that, what motivation do I have? Why better myself? That's another thing that Lewis in his podcast with a lot of his speakers talks about is, and one of the themes over this last weekend was I am. So I am, and then fill in the blank. And I just finally started telling myself, I am enough. I'm enough to have a great life, and I am worthy of having a beautiful, healthy life. And yeah, it's, for so many people, I know that's such a difficult reach, because I used to be there. When I first stepped into the gym, I'm pushing 400 pounds, and even my trainer would tell you today, when I went in there, I was just so angry and so just angry with life, and my ego was just out of control. And every minute detail that I would screw up on, I would just beat myself up over. And boy, what a change time makes, because once you learn how to drop your ego and look under the mask we wear a lot of the times, I mean, you're bound to find a beautiful person behind there,
No, absolutely. It's the whole thing about, you mentioned the ego, and it's like, when I tell people, it's, if you don't love yourself, it's game over. When I tell people to love yourself, it's not about having an ego. It's not an arrogance thing. It's knowing your worth, knowing your value, knowing that you do matter, that and when I say love yourself, it's loving that skin that you're in, that body that you look at maybe sometimes in disgust or with disappointment. That body has stood there with you by your side, held you up. That body has done so much for you. It's put up with more crap than you can ever imagine going through. And so rather than look down on it, rather than, be disgusted or disappointed in it, you stand by that body. You go to war for that body. You fight like hell for that body.
Yeah.
And on the other side, you come out a better person for it, because you become one with yourself. And again, it's not arrogance. It's not ego. It's not being selfish. It's making sure that you got your shit together so that you can go out and handle your everyday, whatever that may be.
For sure. I think one of the things that Jay Shetty talks about that I resonate so well with is he calls it, so he's a former monk. He used to live in India with a bunch of monks and trained under them for several years. And he has just this unique wisdom to him. And one of the things that he talks about that really resonates with me is he talks about selfless service and, you know, and helping others and just seeing the best out of that. Well, how am I going to help or inspire anybody if I can't help myself?
Exactly.
If I have an empty cup, I can't fill another, that age-old adage. But yeah, what a powerful thing it is to just sit back, look in the mirror, and just go, man, I love you. I love this body. I love this life. And and I've never dealt with mental illness to the extent of most. Mine has been all forced upon myself, basically. All those negative thoughts that are just driven in my own head from myself that I, constantly beat myself over the head with. So to an extent, I'm very ignorant to the fact that I don't understand how bad it can get, for sure.
Yeah.
But man, if you just look around you, whatever room you're in, you can look around you and just be so appreciative for these little things and just find the beauty in everyday life. And I think once you have that and you can really put that love in yourself, you'll find ways. I call it honoring yourself. So my buddy was having a hard time with kind of cultivating his vision and what he wants to do going forward in the future. And I said, man, what are you doing for yourself these days? He's a realtor and he works, crazy hours. Dude is always working, right?
Right.
And I said, that's great and all, but money at the end of the day, this is another thing that Jay Shetty says. He says, money doesn't go with you to the grave. The only thing that goes with you, or the only thing that goes with you throughout your whole life, from the day you're born till the day you die, is your breath. And money, people, worldly possessions, that all goes away.
Yeah.
And we had a real deep conversation about, money is just not, it's helpful and it's useful to, live a decent life, but what are you doing outside of that to really cultivate that vision that you have? And one kind of tip I gave him was honoring yourself every day. Finding one thing that you do every day that you set aside time for yourself, and you sit there and say, listen, Ryan, this is what I'm going to do today, and this is how I'm going to honor myself and honor my time and honor my life and honor my future. If we lose that time and don't invest time in ourselves, we're just losing ourselves, and eventually that's where we put on a bunch of weight or whatever, or what have you. You disassociate from good relationships that you have. There's all sorts of things, and I think one of the biggest things I helped him with and helped myself with was finding a way to honor yourself every day. Right. I know for me, that's getting up a little early every day, going on a morning walk and listening to an audiobook or music sometimes, whatever it is. But taking that time for myself and really, allowing myself to walk, breathe, feel the world around me, and, but just knowing that time's for me. It's not for anybody else. And that can be so difficult with these busy lives we lead, especially parents. When you have children, I mean, I don't have children, but I can only imagine how much harder that gets, and I think that's one of the biggest things we lose when we take a look at self-love is how are we honoring ourselves? And are we doing physical things? Are we feeding our bodies the right way? Are we cultivating a positive mindset to, show that love within ourselves? But it's very, very fascinating to me how much we beat ourselves up and how little we put into ourselves at times.
Yeah. I mean, it's taking time for yourself is so important. I feel like lately I haven't done it enough. I need to get back into, taking more of that time, just alone,
Right.
away from everything. It kind of becomes a little difficult in the sense of it's like, well, there's podcasts to do. Maybe there's social media to be had, and stuff like that. But I also value this time. Like, this is one of the things a lot of people don't think they understand when they pull up this podcast. And I think what makes it so unique, you and I prior to today have never spoken to each other. I mean, a DM, I mean, that's text, but like, we've never jumped on a call and just started talking like this. What these people are listening to right now, and these people that I'm very thankful that they took the time to download this or stream this, whether it's Apple, Spotify, iHeartRadio, wherever you're listening, you are hearing two guys that have never communicated before on a, like on an audio basis. They've never spoken on the phone or anything. And so I like this because I get to speak with someone new. I mean, people, they can hear my story, any week. And a lot of times, even when I'm talking to people, I can bring up stuff that's relevant to my story and kind of it goes along with whatever's going on with their story. And it's very interesting. But for me, I mean, I'm almost selfishly getting a lot more out of this, I think, because I'm getting to meet new people, which is actually something that younger me and me even a few years ago is like terrified of. And that's like meeting new people and being like somewhat outgoing. Cause, growing up, I always kind of was very introverted. And to get on this with a stranger, essentially, it could be very daunting when you think about it, but man, I love this. This is unlike anything. I mean, I don't know. There's probably other podcasts that do this and I just don't know about them, cause there's like 500,000 podcasts out there by now, but man, I tell you what, I don't know a damn one that's doing something like this. And this is a lot of fun, man.
For sure. Yeah, man. It's interesting you say that because I myself am very introverted as well. Like I will take a day or, a Friday night and sit in and read rather than go out and hang out with friends. It's just kind of the way I've always been. And one thing I learned this weekend at that event is, I mean, these people that are just seeking greatness out of their lives will just come up to you and just randomly start a conversation with you out of nowhere. And now I left that weekend with like at least 5 new really close friends that we cultivated such a positive relationship over. But yeah, so I agree with you that this format and us just jumping on tonight is just, it's a real beautiful thing, man. And I love the whole story aspect and storytelling aspect of podcasts like this, and I think that's what
I think that's what brings
you originally.
Yeah,
I think the episode. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I'm sorry. I think we lost a signal there for a second. If you could repeat your last point, I'm sorry. I'm sorry to the podcast listener. It was cutting out there, and that was before I rudely interrupted you. So before that, you were saying something, and it cut out.
You're good. Yeah. No. So I just think it's such a beautiful thing for us to be able to hop on here and just cultivate such a positive relationship kind of out of nowhere.
Yeah.
And I think one of the things that initially drew me to you, Gary, was I listened to a podcast episode of yours a couple weeks ago where I heard you really struggling, and it was a solo episode of yours, and I could just feel it right along with you. I was actually on my morning walk that morning, and I just was like, man, I don't know where this guy is in the world, but I'm just sending him out these mental hugs because, man, I've been there, and I get it. Like, it is so difficult to kind of pull yourself out of those ruts. But I think the story aspect and storytelling is just such a beautiful thing, and it really, really humanizes what we do. because when you look online, you see Gary and he's lost a ton of weight, and to a certain extent, it seems impossible. It seems like this reach that people are, it's just like you said, very daunting and very just impossible to reach. And to listen to somebody go through a real struggle like that and to just be in a depressive state, I know for myself, like I said, I mean, I've been there and I get it. And, when I listened to it at that time, I mean, my mental state was really good at the time. So I'm able to receive it well. But for somebody else that may be going through the same thing, they're like, man, how is this guy that lost all this weight having such a, having such a difficult time,
Yeah. And I think that's, so many people, they don't always put out the real stuff. I'm lucky in the sense that most of the people that I follow, that I actually, I interact with it and all that stuff. I try to keep up with everybody, and it's impossible at times, but the people that I follow, I feel like are real, genuine people that are showing real stuff. They're showing the ups and downs, but there are so many out there that aren't showing everything. They're showing you just a small glimpse. And a lot of times it's the positive stuff. For me, when I decided to share this journey with people, it was, I'm putting it all out there. And I've had people come up to me and say, I think you're sharing too much. I think we don't need to know about that. You've gone through this or that, this depression or whatever. Like, I think you're sharing too much. And I'm like, no, I don't think I am. I think that in the interest of really sharing a real raw journey and giving people the absolute most accurate picture that I can possibly share, it is sharing all this stuff. And I feel like this is the way to go about it. There is a way that you can do it that makes sense and it can help people. And I've had people come to me and say, hey, I heard this episode and this really helped. Yeah. And that to me makes it all worth it at that point.
Yeah. It's such a beautiful thing to just be able to really relate with somebody. Again, when it comes to weight loss, I mean, when I started off losing weight, everybody around me at the time was already, ripped and in really good shape. And there I was pushing 400 pounds and couldn't even run down the freaking street.
Yeah.
And to get that really honest perspective, it's such a beautiful thing. And like you said, I think a lot of that struggle often doesn't get, published to an extent because it's not the sexy thing. It's not, the rah-rah thing that everybody needs that's going to get you 1 million likes and followers. But it's such an important piece because that is the struggle every day. I mean, hell, before I got home here and made dinner, I'm kind of thinking to myself at work, having this mental struggle about, man, do I go to, I don't know about you, Gary, but to me, Chipotle is the biggest freaking addiction.
Yes. Chipotle is life, bro.
Oh my God. But I'm sitting there right before work thinking, I could really go to Chipotle right after work and make this work and go work out after the podcast. And, and then God, it's just tugging war with my mind because then I'm like, listen, no, I've got a plan in place. I've got a meal. But
yes.
Then, my ego is like, oh, but Chipotle, it's so freaking good, And it's a constant battle. And I think with so many things like that, diet, your mental state and injury, kind of going through showing that to everybody, it's such a powerful thing. And it boils down to the fact that we're all human, and a lot of that gets lost in our everyday lives, especially with, social media, the way it is and the way, the world is. It's not the sexy thing to talk about depressive states. It's not the sexy thing to talk about weight gain when you're trying to lose weight. It's taboo to an extent, and nobody wants to put that kind of content out to make themselves relatable. But I think that's where you get that kind of appreciation from people and more of the respect because it's just such a powerful thing. For sure.
Yeah, it's really Gary V that inspired me when he said, document over create. And that stuck with me because I think in a lot of ways, I thought to myself before, it was always, creating content. I've talked about before how I've done, tons of old radio shows where it was just creating content. It wasn't really like documenting my life. And now it's all about documenting. It's taking people along for that ride and, hopefully inspiring and hopefully, motivating and helping people out, because that to me is really what it's all about. That's why I do it. And so, doing the whole documenting over creating is really critical for me, dude. I've got when I saw that video, what was it, a 5-minute plea to do that Gary Vee put out, and I saw it in February. I mean, that changed my life. February of last year, 2017, that video like literally changed my life.
Yeah.
It's crazy how you can find one piece of content that just changes everything.
Yeah. Yeah. That one for me, I actually just shared it with my sister yesterday. So I've said his name a couple times now, but Lewis Howe's interview with Jay Shetty. So the guy that used to be a monk.
Yeah.
Listening to his perspective on life, and mind you, he has nothing to do with weight loss. He has nothing to do with health. He has nothing to do with, weightlifting.
Yeah.
It's strictly mindset based, but he brings such a beautiful perspective to life that is something that I think is a story that needs to be heard worldwide. I mean, it's just kindness, compassion, self-love, and his perspective on life after his journey with being a monk is something that when I heard that, the lights went on. And I heard that episode right after my mom passed, and I was just like, holy shit, like everything makes sense now. And yeah, that's for me when the light went off. And I love Gary Vee too, like you said. I mean, he's incredible. But yeah, when I heard Jay Shetty's interview, I was taken back, and I made a point to go meet him this weekend because I was like, dude. And I pulled him aside, and nicest guy too. And I pulled him aside and I said, man, your content at that time was just so honest, and it was exactly what I needed to not give up on my life and to keep myself going. And even though it wasn't weight loss based, it wasn't, centered around weightlifting, it was just that positivity and that positive motivation and the realness of it all was just such it was just so moving for me. And it's just something I think everybody needs to listen to, because that's something I think that's so sorely missed in our world these days is finding that positive nature in us, like we were talking about before. Because I think, and Jay Shetty says this too, he says, we're all geared for service, and we're all geared for helping others. And that's kind of the way our lives are, but we get lost along the way and start doing things for greed, for lust, for all this other stuff. But when you center your life around service and caring for others and just that kindness and compassion, I mean, beautiful things happen. And hearing that message and more of it that I'm butchering at this time because it's kind of passing me as I'm trying to replicate it. But
yeah,
his message in that was the light, and it was like, man, I need to lose this weight. And one of the things that came from that when I heard him speak was kind of what led me to my current vision. And for me, that is, so when I started losing weight again, one of the things I said to myself was, I really want to be there for other people when they're starting off on their weight loss journey, because it wasn't until my trainer, Pat, it wasn't until he put his hands on my shoulder basically and said, listen, Ryan, you got this. You can lose this weight, and we're going to do it together.
Right.
And it wasn't until I had that person in my corner, because at that point I wasn't even in my own corner.
Yeah.
Shit. I mean, I was so, so lost in my head and nutrition and weightlifting, and oh my God, this is so daunting. But it wasn't until somebody put their hands on me and said, listen, man, we got this, and we're going on this journey together. And then that's when I just felt that love, and I was kind of able to let my ego go a little bit and start to tear down those walls. But when I started losing weight the second time, like I said, I wanted to start doing that for other people. So I recently became certified as a personal trainer. And one of the things I want to do is reach out to people that are starting to lose weight and, give them that helpful advice, because I don't know for you, Gary, but for me, it took months before I was able to, figure out proper things as far as diet. I had a trainer at the time, which was a wonderful help. So weight training was, I had a guide there, but with nutrition and just mental state of mind and how all of that blends into your life at that time when you're trying to lose weight.
Right.
I mean, it was such a struggle, those first couple of weeks, months. And yeah, it's I think having that person in your corner with you, even when you're not in your own corner for you, is such a powerful thing. And that's definitely one thing I want to do going forward is, reaching people and helping them, letting them know that you are enough too. You're worth that beautiful, happy, healthy life, and you're worth making those dreams come true for yourself.
Definitely. So, I mean, and it takes a lot of time and kind of where are you at with everything right now? So like when you started again, you were, how much did you say you were? 300 and
I was about 380 roughly at the time. That's just kind of ballpark because I didn't end up weighing myself for about a couple weeks and after I started losing weight again.
Right.
So I'm just figuring it was probably more, to be honest, but it was around 380. So right now I'm sitting at 320.
Nice.
So about 60 pounds down.
That's awesome.
My goal right now is to get below where I was at my lowest a couple years ago, which was 286. And then once I hit that milestone, that's when I'm going to start, really reaching out to people more as far as training goes, and then really start my grind. And I, to an extent, I don't like looking at the scale, and that's something I tell people a lot that have reached out and wanted to start losing weight is weigh yourself that first day, and then lock up your scale for the next 3 months, and let your body do its thing. Because I know for me, I play the weight game every freaking, day to an extent. I will hop on that scale every day if it's in front of me. And it can just really mess with your mental state if you're just not seeing those results like that. And yeah, so like I said, to an extent, I want to get down to probably like 230, 240 maybe. But 280 is the goal. 286 just below that is the goal. And I don't know for you, but, we always idolize certain people in our lives to emulate our bodies after.
Yeah.
The one thing, so I know you and I both love football, and the one thing I always thought about for somebody that's 6'3" like myself is whenever you hear stats for an NFL linebacker, it's 6'3", 250 pounds. So
yes,
that's always been the goal of mine. Like, man, can I get to 250 or even below that? Man, I could be a freaking linebacker.
There you go.
Yeah. So kind of my ego talking again, but that's, that's something that kind of got my engines revving, was like, hell yeah, man, I can do that. So yeah, it's on the way down for sure. And it's a real exciting time.
Yeah, I mean, when you think about it, anything's really possible when you believe in yourself and you, as Gary Vee would say, suffocate your own bullshit, and you just keep on going for it. You're not listening to what everyone else is saying necessarily. You're just focused on your stuff. You figure out what works best for you, and you fight and you fight and you fight for it until you get there. So I absolutely believe that you will arrive at that, that kind of the 280s. That's kind of where I'm sitting at right now. I got as low as 270 and I went back up just a little bit. I was always trying to find, that balance between the cardio and the weights. And I finally got something that I liked, because I tend to at one point go too heavy on one versus the other. And when I let the cardio slip a little bit, I started putting back on the pounds, and I'm like, all right, there's a fine balance where you can do a little bit of this and a little bit of that. And, Gary's not in a hurry to lose this weight. He just wants to be happy. And so that's where I'm at right now. I'm I'm happy. I'm still working. Once I get 100% out of this slump, I'm going to get my eating back on track again. Cause that's one of the bigger issues at hand. It's not really not working out cause I'm doing that 5 days a week. It's really more the eating. That's it's always been something for me that has been not perfect. So we're getting there though.
I definitely second that. I mean, I saw, for me, it's always been weight training. So I've kind of centered myself around weight training, and that's my thing. And the one thing I saw actually on Instagram before we jumped on this evening was just something very simple, and it was, don't complicate the small stuff like cardio and weightlifting. Like do what you can do and listen to your body. And then somebody responded back to this guy and said, well, how am I going to lose weight? And he just said, be in a caloric deficit, whatever that looks like for you, do that.
Definitely.
And that's again where we start to overcomplicate things. And I need to do keto and, all this crazy stuff and take these pills and run 10 miles every day. And, and we just psych ourselves out, and then we don't do any of it because it all seems so daunting. How can I go to the gym, lift for an hour, do cardio for 30 minutes, and then eat super clean right after? I mean, it's just these giant daunting tasks that we put in front of ourselves a lot of the time. And just that overcomplication of things is enough to sideline us and say, hey, I'm not doing any of it, And
yeah.
It's such a daunting task. So I know for me, it's weightlifting first. Cardio is a secondary source, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, maybe not going to go crazy for my, 100% of the time. I do my morning walks, but again, that's not super, that's not intense at all really. And then diet wise, I know for me personally, I use intermittent fasting. Now, intermittent fasting is just convenient for me because even though I wake up and go on a morning walk, the thought of making breakfast every morning is too much. So for whatever reason, it's silly to say, but the thought of having to make breakfast every morning just seems too much for me. So intermittent fasting for me just kind of worked out to where, thank God, I don't have to freaking make breakfast anymore. And I can just focus on preparing my lunch and preparing my dinner. And I've been doing that for several months now. I mean, probably over a year, and it's served me very well. But again, that's not for everybody, and I totally get that. But yeah, we overcomplicate things. I know I made a post earlier this evening and was just, for dinner I made shellless tacos. I put bison meat in there and a little bit of cheese, sour cream, guacamole, and what else? I think that was pretty much it. But just trying to be as clean as possible and, cutting out a ton of sugar, trying to be as clean as possible. One thing I took away from a leading member in, I don't know that he focuses around nutrition, but just overall health, is a gentleman named Dr. Mark Hyman. He's out of the Cleveland Clinic. And one thing he said in his book, Eat Fat, Get Thin, is something that I took away, and it was just something simple. It said, if God didn't make it, you probably shouldn't eat it.
Right.
So if God didn't put it on this earth and it's man-made, you probably shouldn't put that in your body. And that was something that resonated with me, and I was like, holy shit, like, yeah, that makes sense. So I know for me, I don't know about you, but for me, the personal struggle is cheese. I love cheese.
Yes.
To no extent. So in my fridge is a freaking giant pack of cheese sticks, and I kid you not, I could slam back like 10 of those if I had no self-control. And just in one sitting, that could be my dinner, just 10 freaking cheese sticks.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's just a daily struggle to do all that. So for me, cheese is a big one. Sour cream is like a topping is always a big one. Yeah.
Dude, the similarities just keep rolling.
Yeah.
Sour cream, cheese, guacamole, because that's that. I mean, that's not terrible for you.
It's not the worst, for sure. Yeah, for sure.
Salsa.
And salsa's not the worst either. I mean, you could definitely find worse options than those right there.
Yeah.
For me, what always kicks in too is I have a hell of a sweet tooth that is hard to combat.
Yes.
I'm still trying to find ways to combat that. So I live with my sister, and
Mm-hmm.
oh my God, she constantly leaves like, and I love her, but holy crap, does she just leave out packs of like Oreos?
Oh yeah.
There have been Nutter Butters out for the last week. Like, how can you tell me when it's in front of my face, how am I not going to pick up a pack or a couple Oreos and eat these right now? Like, I have yet to find that it's possible to look past that, especially when, you know, we value each day and value, you know, and we just say, hey, it's just a couple, like, you know, that it is what it is.
I find that it's easier if, you know, if that temptation is really there, that I tend to give in, but on a much smaller scale. So like, instead of going and getting an entire bag, it might be like, oh, well, here's one or two of the little tiny fun size. And in the grand scheme, you know, if you have, you know, one of those or two of those, like two, maybe 3 times a week, it's not going to kill you. It's this little tiny square piece of chocolate. That's not the end of the world. It's when you start going into the multiple candy bars and all that stuff. Like I have, you know, I used to have a big problem with going to like a Wawa or Sheetz or something like that and picking up, you know, like big ass breakfast burritos or something breakfast related. So now, because I know that temptation, it's not really there anymore, but I do, you know, when I stop for gas in the morning, that temptation, you know, the thought pops up in my mind. So the way to cure that is knowing that, you know, no longer will I go to these places each and every single day, but I fill up for gas once a week. So on that whole once a week, I will allow myself like 1 chocolate milk and 1 donut. And in the grand scheme of things, again, it's 1 donut. It's not 2 or 3 or 4. It's 1. And then it's 1 bottle. I think it's like a 12 to 16 ounce bottle of chocolate milk. And again, these 2 things, 1 time out of the 7 days, is not going to kill you. This idea, and this is what kills diets for I think a lot of people, it's when you put that in your brain that I'm never allowed to have this again.
Yeah.
And that's where the problem comes in. A lot of people, they think that they're never allowed to have this certain thing again. Like imagine never having pizza ever again. Or if you like your beer,
I was going to say that.
or if you like your beer, I like my beer a time or two. A friend of mine, Nikki on Instagram, she talks about she likes her pizza and beer. I like my pizza and beer. And so with that being said, you try to tell yourself that, oh no, I'm never allowed to have that again. Bullshit. Right. You know, maybe once a week or once every other week, that I'm going to let that creep in, just not on a crazy ass, I'm going to eat the whole pizza, a whole large pizza by myself level. It's not going to get to that. It's all right, 2, 3, maybe 3 slices, whatever, and a couple of beers, and it's no big deal. And I think that, you know, once you get it in your mind that you don't have to completely just ban these things. The only things I ever banned was like McDonald's, anything Taco Bell, Burger King, or Wendy's, because those were 4 places that on a daily basis, like in rotation, that I was going to every single day, especially McDonald's. I actually had a friend of mine who was talking to me not too long ago. He's like, dude, man, you gotta come back and check them out, because man, this new quarter pounder they got is incredible. And now you can order it on your app, and they got touch screens in the restaurants, and dude, you got to come check this out. And I'm like, bro, we're coming up on the 2-year anniversary of me stepping in McDonald's for the last time. 2 years. Wow. At the very least, I'm going to make it those 2 years before I ever step foot. Can I absolutely say with 100% certainty that I will never visit a McDonald's again? I cannot say that, because I don't know the circumstance. It may be very possible that I may run out of gas somewhere, and you know, that's like the one place that I could possibly eat or whatever. But I make a choice to not go in there on the daily basis that I used to go in there. And so it's all about making those choices, but knowing that there are certain things you don't have to ban. So like, for instance, if I really want a cheeseburger, then I'm either going to make it here at the house and it's going to be a turkey burger, which is far better. Or I'll just go to a higher end place that makes it with better meat, to where at least if I have that, it's not going to be the worst thing in the world to have.
Right. Yeah, for sure. Like, Gary, if you told me right now I could never have pizza again the rest of my life, I would hunt you down and do unspeakable things. But yeah, I mean, it's again one of those daunting tasks we put in front of ourselves. And
Yes.
the one thing, excuse me, the one thing I found was, so I'm going to quote Dr. Mark Hyman again, and I have not looked at the research 100% on my own. So I am taking his word. So I know there's going to be that one person out there, that'll go, try to find the research. So I'm just quoting him for a second here, but he talks about how when we eat food, there's two ways we can receive that food. There's the one way where we have a real positive mindset about it, and we're talking to ourselves as we're eating it, and we're saying, this food is great for me. This food is serving me. It's going to fuel my body and do all the positive things that it needs to do for me to continue on throughout my day.
Right.
Or there's a second way to look at it where, this is some garbage I'm putting into my system. This is awful for me. I shouldn't be eating it, and stressing yourself out over it. Now, he talks about that. And like I said, apparently there's a study out about this, but I cannot provide you with the exact study. But
Sure.
he talks about if you were to eat a terrible meal like McDonald's or whatever, Taco Bell, but have that positive mindset in your mind where you still say, listen, this is serving my body. This is fuel for me. This is, helping nourish my vision and my goals. That you end up the hormones that the way you digest that food, you actually don't tack on a bunch of weight. Your positive hormones that you're releasing with those thoughts are kind of counteracting against the bad macronutrients and micronutrients that are in the bad meal, and vice versa. If you were to take a chicken salad, but you go, God, this is some garbage and I hate this shit. Why am I eating this 5 times a week? Like, what the hell am I doing? And you beat yourself up over it every time. You're releasing these really bad hormones into your system that are just going to stress your body out. And I mean, what do we know about stress? But it'll give you a heart attack. It'll also tack on weight like that too. Even if you're eating a chicken salad or anything that's good for you. I think that's one thing that's so important is if you're going to have a couple slices of pizza, if you have to make that stop somewhere that isn't the best for you, just going into it with a positive mindset and saying, listen, this is serving me right now, and this is fine, and I'm happy. I'm going to enjoy this meal for what it is, and I will clean things up in the future. But yeah, I know you and I have been through it, I'm sure, hundreds of times where we eat this and we're like, a second after we put it in our mouth, we're like, God, this is awful for me. I'm going to hate myself tomorrow. And oh crap, going through all these terrible anxiety-based scenarios in our head where we just, again, psych ourselves out, and we just receive those meals so poorly into our system, and with those hormones added, the stress we put on ourselves, that in itself just makes it such an unhealthy thing for us, let alone the bad food that we're potentially putting into our body at the same time. So it's interesting how big of an ecosystem our body really is, and how all of those things work together. One thing I was always told and heard very early on in my weight loss journey, but didn't take into heart, was the mind is the body and the body is the mind, and how important that connection was.
Right.
Because we can turn our body into this terrible thing if our mindset is just in an awful place. There's just so much damage we could do with our mind alone. One example I always tell people is when I was in elementary school, if I knew, and I was a terrible school, middle school, and high school, terrible, like not what anybody wants to emulate their children after.
Yeah.
And whenever I had a big test or a big assignment that I knew I was going to fail, or if I had an assignment I knew I didn't do, I would fake sick, and I would convince my body that I was sick, and I would turn myself sick, and I would throw up. There's nothing wrong with me other than I believed it so far into my head that it manifests throughout my body, and then vomited later to show my mom I'm not sick, I cannot go to school. And I did that at a very early age. 10, 11, up through high school. And it never made sense to me when I first started losing weight. I would always hear people say the mind is the body is the mind. Okay, well, what the hell does that mean? And then I look back on my life and I said, holy shit, I used to do that so frequently and let myself believe I was sick, vomit, and not have to go to school. And that was the best thing in the world. But then the rest of the day, I still felt sick because I convinced my body and put all this stress on my body that I was sick. So it's such a crazy connection we have to make with our minds and our bodies that I think is another thing a lot of us don't think about too. And that's where that negative mentality starts to seep in and starts to just contort all sorts of stuff with our health. It's pretty fascinating stuff.
Yeah, the mind is such a critical piece of the weight loss. A lot of people think, well, I just got to go out there and work out and eat right and all that stuff. And yes, that is all accurate. But man, you really got to get your mind in order. And that's just like, the last month when I was going through my slump, it's like, man, my mind was just not in it. Like I was going to the gym and all that stuff, and I felt glad that I was, but at the same time, I'm like, man, I just feel like a robot in here. I'm just kind of just going through the motions, and I'm probably not really doing much with it, but I'm just showing up. I'm just existing here. I'm not living, I'm existing. Yeah. And there is a difference. There is a big difference. Sure. As you look forward, the next couple of years down the road, what are some of your long-term goals? Obviously, I know you want to get to, you talk about 250 and all that good stuff, and get back down to even where you were before at 280. But, what are some of your kind of long-term goals as you look ahead to the future?
Yeah. So one of the biggest things I've learned through weight loss and through just personal development in general, and I think the two go together so perfectly. And I think that's another thing that kind of gets lost is the building of ourselves and the building of our minds. Is one thing I know for me is I want to quit my job and work for myself through serving people and helping people lose weight, potentially starting a podcast such as your own, but maybe not a weight loss platform, maybe more personal development. I don't know. We'll see. Yeah. I kind of got something in the works right now, and I'm really hoping it goes through, but maybe not, who knows, but really spreading that message and letting people know, you're worth something, and you've got such, even if you don't see it right now, there is something inside of you that is unique and different and beautiful about yourself that shouldn't just be cast aside and shouldn't just be let go. It's something that should be celebrated and really shown to the world. And I really want to show people that through weight loss, through personal development, coaching. One thing I've worked on of late is public speaking. So again, trying to extend my reach and reach a larger audience. But and I think, again, that all kind of intertwines personal development through weight loss. And I mean, I know my mental state when I was, almost 400 pounds was just the worst. And I can only imagine what somebody else is going through when they're just constantly beating themselves up over the smallest stuff. And I really want to be there for people and be that arm around the shoulder and listen, it's going to be okay. We will get through this together. It's not just you. You're not alone. And we will conquer this together. And really go experiencing it with them, because it's hard to do a big, daunting task like that on your own and not have any sort of emotional or physical support from somebody. It's very, very difficult. And yeah, just really spreading my reach to those people and letting them know, you're worth something. You're worth something in this world. And there's more than enough places for you in this world. So through, personal training, speaking, potentially podcasting in the future, all that kind of stuff. Eventually writing. I think a long-term goal for me is one day I would love to write a book.
Yeah, I'm going through that right now.
Are you? That's awesome. I absolutely love books. I have a stack behind me right next to my bedside that is probably 10 books high of books that I have been procrastinating to read, and I have made it a note to honor myself tonight by really cracking into one of those books, because I mean, I can't tell you how many books I have just stacked up waiting to be read. I mean, it's ridiculous. But yeah, books are such a powerful platform too, extending your knowledge base and I mean, look, I was, like I said kind of quickly before, I was the worst student in high school. And I was, I mean, I'm in college currently,
Yeah.
but I mean, the first couple of years, I mean, I have always been the worst student. I could barely pass tests. I mean,
I
I
hear
never
ya.
turned in any homework, and
Same here.
I somehow left that high school with a freaking diploma. It is comical to me at this point because I know how awful I was, and
Yeah.
it's just ridiculous. But I think when you really apply yourself, kind of like I have now with getting my personal training certification, if you have the knowledge base and or the want to go get that knowledge base, I personally don't believe that you need, you need a 4-year degree to, tell people how to weight train or, explain nutrition. Like if you care enough about it and you are willing to go put the time in and do the research on your own, that shows me a lot of investment in yourself and for others that somebody else that went drinking every other day and struggled through getting a 4-year degree from a major university.
Yeah.
I'm going to pick the guy with more heart that went and did it on his own and put in the time and learned everything, not some guy that struggled his way through college and yeah, he has this big fancy degree, but what passion does he have to help me,
Yeah, it's real life experience. I think that plays a heavy part. I just got, kind of started with launching, a mastermind and offering myself to others on a one-on-one and mastermind group for mindset. And this all comes from personal experience. This is not some shit I'm going to learn in a book. This is real life experience,
Sure.
And so I hope that it helps people. That's the whole reason for doing it. And I think that the 4 pillars are such a strong thing that, when you apply it to your life and, when I sit down with these folks and they kind of tell me where they're at and we're able to figure out how to apply those 4 pillars to their life, that's going to be game changing for a lot of people, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a message that is sorely missed, I feel. And it's something to really be celebrated, those 4 things, because like we said, we just overcomplicate so much stuff and we get it into our own heads that we can't succeed, and then that just trickles into everything else we do. And I feel for those people because that was me, that was you. And with our reach and helping those people, we could do a lot of amazing things and help change some incredible lives. And that's the biggest thing I want, people to take away from whenever I speak or whenever I, show up somewhere is, you are worth having a beautiful life. I don't know where you're from, who you are, what your name is,
Right,
or how much you weigh. You have the ability and are worth having a beautiful life should you so choose to go claim it for yourself and fight for your life, because you are fighting for your life. When you're excessively overweight and have all that stress and burden in your life, it is quite the battle and a long journey ahead. But when you come out the other end, you're going to be incredible, and you are worth that incredible life. And that's just something that every person needs to understand when they start off on a weight loss journey, if they're dealing with depression, whatever it is. You are worth it.
Definitely. Well, I mean, Ryan, you've really said it all here. This is, I mean, I don't know how we're going to top that. I think we need to just stop it right there. We just need to stop the tape right there. Well, actually, I'm not stopping it right there because we have to actually outro this thing, but, you really said it all. I think that people are going to get a lot of value from, our conversation today. I think you've brought a whole other perspective on it. I really appreciate the vibrance of your personality, your positive personality. And I think that it's going to resonate with a lot of people. Before we go though, make sure that people know where they can find you. And if they want to reach you and get a hold of you, where do they need to go?
Yeah. So I spend the most time on Instagram, and I'm working at getting more consistent at posting content, but it's just at Ryan Tomcko, Tomcko on Instagram, and Ryan Tomcko on Facebook. I'll be other places here in the near future, but that's where I currently sit right now. So if you want any first update, Instagram's probably the one for me. So
Love it. Love it. Well, look, man, for y'all listening, go out and follow this man. I love this conversation today. Ryan, thank you so much, dude. I think this podcast is really going to help a lot of people. And I think that I'm glad that we were able to jump on and do this thing, man. We'll definitely have to catch up in the future and do another one down the line.
Absolutely, Gary. I appreciate you so much. Thanks for having me on. And again, to all those people, you are worth it. Go claim your beautiful life that you deserve.
I love it. I love it. Thank you, brother.
Absolutely. Thank you, man.
All right. See ya.